5:30 in the morning, the phone rang, and my wife in the bed next to me said, "Which child has had an accident?" And I listened, and a Swedish accented voice said, "How does it feel to win the Nobel Prize?" And I wasn't sure that it wasn't a hoax, but I said to my wife, "It's okay, no child involved." And then the announcement came that I had been named. It seemed genuine and not a hoax, and I was surprised. And I think one of my reactions was, and my second daughter criticized me later when I told her about it. I said, "Well, it's nice to have a lot of hard work rewarded." She said that was a very stuck-up answer.
Well, it was clear from the citation that perhaps invariant with every other laureate that despite the tradition of the prize being for a specific contribution, the committee could clearly not avoid saying, "You've made specific contributions, each of which would be more than the Nobel Prize quality to almost every field." And then, of course, your textbook, and they made it clear. And I think everyone would agree that you are perhaps the last truly general economist in making enormous contributions to every field. And then if we think of our special field, mine that you contributed in
You're talking about finance now.
Finance now, yeah. That you may recall in a festschrift 20 years ago, I took note that all of your most significant finance papers had been produced after the age of 50, and that therefore negating the purported iron rule that scientific productivity declines with age beyond a certain point. I've since noted that you've added 26 more publications since that time just in finance. So I think you're continuing to provide additional data along those lines. But turning to
Are you saying that when I once said in finance I'm only a Sunday painter, that isn't quite true?
Yes, that's exactly right. Or we all wish we could be such Sunday painters. Yeah. I have my favorites of your papers and your contributions, but I want to ask you, can you tell us what your favorite contributions were? The ones, any number, but just what are the ones that you're really thinking about, or the ones that you...
Well, almost every one of those papers was directed toward a prior formulated problem. For example, about the time you came on the scene, when I wrote about what the time profile of risk taking should be, depending upon whether you were going to retire and die 1 year from now, or retire and need income 30 years from now. I wrote the paper to work out what was rational, because without argument, everybody assumed that as you got older, you should be more conservative in your equity tolerance. Now, they seem to believe, because all of the economists had had a smattering of classical statistics, that with large numbers comes greater security, lower variability. And so if you have 35 years to retire, you're going to have samples of 30 quasi-independent items, and therefore risk erodes as the horizon number ahead grows. Well, there's an obvious exception to that. By that time, we all knew about constant relative risk aversion, where when you use that utility model for your postulated Laplacian rational investor, you do the same thing when you have 1 year to go if you're facing truly white noise. As you would do if you had 100,000 years to go. That it's not the statistical law of large numbers that's involved that makes some sense of the customary dogma, but it is the fact that you have the option of working harder or working less hard if your optimistic guess goes wrong. And so in that model, when you add the variability of your supply effort over your life cycle, there is some truth to it. Every one of the problems I wrote about was in the air. Your father